Happy Monday, everybody. How you doing? What is up? My name is Clint. This is the Die Hard MMA podcast, and we are talking UFC Vegas 36. How's everybody doing this evening? We've already got a bunch of early viewers rolling in. The usual suspects, Grateful Dude in the house, Jan H, Kenny B, Joseph Newsombaum. We've got the Gaming Wolf 87, Almighty Pay-Per-View Dizzle. We've got Bon Kui Kui, Asphalt, Small World Lifters, Timothy Maynard, Genji, JT Kill, Adam, Kenna. We got Rex Lee, my guy. What's up? How's everybody doing? Welcome into the chat. Dan Goldstein, Michael Lunday, Joshua Frick. I know a lot of these names. All of you, the old schools, the OGs. How is everybody doing? So let's just get it straight out of the way. UFC Vegas 35 was an absolute shit show. What's up, Drew? I see you in the chat there. Man, oh my gosh. So last week, I'm feeling dialed in. I tweeted out my PFL plays, and we hit the sweep, baby. 5-0 on the PFL picks and easy 5 units. And I'm sitting there going, whoo, baby, like we're getting hot. We're rolling into the UFC, and I had a couple hot takes. I feel like we're just going to absolutely crush this weekend. And no, that's not what happened at all. Nobody got out alive from UFC Vegas 36. Now I say nobody. Every time I say that, somebody pops up, and I had GM3 by submission. Yes, a couple of you made some bets that came through. Al Hassan round 1, we saw a couple of those. But the general populace, MMA Twitter, all the people like my boy in the chat, Uncle Wheezy, all of us who do these predictor videos, we got slaughtered. And y'all know I love to be on an island when it comes to my MMA picks. I was not on an island for most of them, and you don't figure that out until Thursday, Friday, Saturday when you start seeing everybody else's plays rolling in, and I started getting a little uneasy. It's like, man, if we all agree and the line is pick 'em minus 125, like, that's never good. It never ends well when that happens. So, unfortunately, got slaughtered. Coming off a bad night, we pocketed the 5 units from the PFL, but I had a legendary reverse sweep, minus 11 units on UFC Vegas 35. That hurts to say. And there's going to be the trolls out there. Expect them in the chat this evening after that kind of an L. And I got to tell you guys, you may not realize this with, I'm old now. I got the dad bod rocking, but I used to be an athlete. I used to be a competitor. My hobbies include poker and sitting in front of a desk and a computer and talking to strangers across the world about fights and gambling on them. But there was a day when your boy was in shape, and I do not like losing. I'm extremely competitive, and one of the reasons why I like sports betting and I like poker is because it gives me something to compete in now that my body is old and broken and I can't do sit-ups the way I used to. I mean, that's one of the things that I do. So there is nothing that speaking to the trolls here, there is nothing that you can say that is worse than what's already been in my head after the skid that I've been on. I am going to buckle down. I'm going to right this ship. And now I'm just pissed off. Now I'm just mad. Like, I'm coming for blood. So I hope everybody's ready. I'm ready to rock and roll for UFC 36. And on top of that, making his glorious return to the show, I have one of the fabled OG guests of the Die Hard MMA podcast. We are bringing in the president of U.S. Integrity, Matt Holt. Matt, how you doing today?
Clint, what's going on? I'm surprised you weren't on D-Rod last Saturday. Get to see your picks, but that just seemed like the one underdog that made sense. I didn't have the best day Saturday, but I did go heavy on D-Rod, and that
Matt,
one did
there were 2 spots last week that I am just kicking myself for, and one of them was D-Rod, because I am a Kevin Lee fanboy. I love the guy. I want to see him succeed, and I know that I've got that bias in my heart for him. And last week on the show, I said, why is Kevin Lee the favorite? Even understanding I have a bias towards this guy, why is he the favorite? He shouldn't be the favorite here. And somehow I still didn't manage to sack up and get my money on D-Rod as an underdog. It was a beautiful spot, and it was calling to me all week. And for something, I just couldn't quite get there. I really don't know why. I have no excuse.
Well, this is a fun card this weekend. I think some of these fights are flying a little bit under the radar, and maybe from mainstream or UFC rankings wise, they don't mean a ton. But boy, do I like a bunch of spots this Saturday.
I can't wait to hear it, Matt. There's a lot of good fights. This is another one of those slugfest, underrated cards where there's going to be a lot of violence, in my opinion. So I'm really excited for this one, too. It should be a lot of fun. If you're ready, let's jump straight on into this thing.
Ready. Let's hit it.
All right, let's go. And just so everybody knows, our guy Matt is traveling. He's working with Wi-Fi at the moment, so if he's a little fuzzy or if he clips out tonight, we're just going to have to roll with it. He's got some important things going on, so just everybody sit tight with us if he gets a little fuzzy or something. Hopefully it balances out and gets working.
Look, for anybody in the chat who's in Washington State, the good news is I'm up here helping some of these tribes get launched, and they will be launched as early as September 9th. So if you're in the state of Washington, sports betting in less than 2 weeks, baby.
Hey, there you go. That's some news for the chat. We love hearing that. The spread of sports betting is fantastic. And one thing I got to mention real quick, Matt, before we get started, I see only bet the plus saying T-word hurts my wallet. And this is something, I tweeted about this yesterday. I am kicking myself like you guys have no idea, because I put out a full breakdown video on Pub Sports Radio for Woodley Paul, and I tweeted out, in fact, the play that I liked best for that fight was Logan Paul by decision. You could get that anywhere from plus 650 to 12 to 1. I mean, it was extremely wide. There was a lot of different variants on that line, and I'm just kicking myself, Matt, because I didn't pull the trigger myself. I could come on this show. OG fans know they're only ever going to get honesty and transparency from me. I could come on and say, hey, I called it, I bet it, give me those 9 units, and I'm not going to do that because the reality is I didn't actually end up pulling the trigger on it, but I'm ashamed because I had such a bad night on Saturday. I could have washed it all away with one bet on Sunday and somehow managed to miss my opportunity. So, yeah, the Paul Woodley situation I'm a little flustered with as well. All right.
I'm a little flustered about the one judge who had Woodley winning because I continue to have to deal with such bad judging in combat sports, period.
Matt, I don't know how you do it. What is the solution? Because there is zero chance Tyrone Woodley won that fight. He won 1 round, 2 at best. There was no way he had a claim to actually winning that fight.
And you know what was interesting, Clint, is the one, and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but that one judge, Phil Rogers, who had Tyron Woodley winning, was a mysterious last-minute replacement. In fact, if you looked on the website, they listed this judge, Andy Atkins, as the 3rd judge. Last minute, Andy Atkins was pulled, replaced by this guy, Phil Rogers, who coincidentally has one of the worst scorecards we've seen.
Wow. That is, see, that's the kind of thing, that's where that kind of crap will never happen in MMA. But when it comes to boxing, makes you raise your eyebrows, makes you wonder just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. We got UFC Vegas 36 coming up this week. And I'm sticking with Tapology because the UFC did me dirty last week on their on their homepage. What we've got here is Jonathan Martinez taking on Marcelo Rojo. And we're starting off with a banger, Matt. This is going to be an excellent, entertaining, fan-friendly fight. Jonathan Martinez, 13-4. Marcelo Rojo is 16-8. And Jonathan Martinez coming off that bad knockout loss to my boy Davey Grant. A lot of people got caught with their pants down on that one. He's got a tall Muay Thai striking style, heavy on his feet. He likes that front teep kick to the body. He attacks the low calf kicks, and he attacks those bad boys hard. He's got a long jab, and honestly, Matt, he does his best work when he's at range. When he can control that distance and keep his opponent right where he likes him with the kicks, that's really when he has the most success. And he struggles with fighters like Davey Grant who are able to swarm him, get in, close the distance, and make him move backwards. He's coming off that knockout loss, really could use a win. He's a hyped prospect, and he's taking on a guy in Rojo who is going to do the exact same thing that Davey Grant did as far as trying to pressure him. This guy is aggressive. Those of you who don't recognize the name Marcelo Rojo, he's the T-Rex guy. He's the guy that does that after every single win. This guy walks through the fire to get to his opponents. Big clinch knees. He's got a strong body lock, good timing on his level changes, and he's got a big right hand. He's a bit of a headhunter. He kind of neglects the body from time to time, but he's got good killer instinct. He flurries on his opponents when they're hurt, when they're up against the cage, and he is willing to press against you and kill some time with the control there. And honestly, he's coming off that fight with Charles Jourdain where he impressed on short notice against a guy that a lot of us are very, very high on. And he had some serious success with the leg kicks. He hurt Charles Jourdain's legs in that fight. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage, and this is the famed Southpaw versus Orthodox matchup, Matt. This is going to be violence. I think this fight is going to be hell on wheels with the way these two styles clash, and I would love to hear your thoughts on how you think this fight is going to play out.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I think the UFC wants to get behind Martinez. It's a guy that they like. He trains at Factory X, so he's in there with a really good gym, getting some of the best training in the world, and I want to bet on him to rebound here, but it's one of the few fights, actually, that I haven't pulled the trigger on. One angle that someone was talking to me about, I was going over the fights with someone, is that I know Jonathan Martinez has been working a lot on his grappling, and what's been the kryptonite career-wise for Marcel Rojo is his submission defense. He's been submitted in 4 of his 7 losses, and he's so aggressive that oftentimes he finds himself in the clinch, on the ground, in a scramble with his opponents. I actually think you can get both guys here. I mean, you can get Jonathan Martinez by submission at big odds. I haven't bet it yet, but I'm not confident enough to lay 155 with Jonathan Martinez, but I might take a flyer here, Jonathan Martinez by sub, for a guy who I know has been working tirelessly at a really good gym in Factory X on his submissions against a guy who career-wise tends to run into submissions a lot.
Okay. That's a hot take right off the start, Matt, and I don't mind it at all. Now, you mentioned Martinez. Things have changed since you've been in the air, Matt. He's already minus 170. The money is flowing in on Jonathan Martinez. People are liking him for a bounce back similar to you, and I like the submission call. I really honestly do, but more so than that, one thing I did recently is get a little too fancy chasing the long props, and if the number is right, I'll absolutely take a flyer on that sub, but I just think the under 2.5 is really a sweet spot here on this fight. It's minus 105. It looks like 5 Dimes has it at plus money, plus 125 right now. That won't be there by Thursday, Friday for the people who don't get those totals until a little later in the week. I think one of these guys is going to go to sleep in this fight because, yeah, Jonathan Martinez, he's going to be the more technical guy. Marcelo Rojo forces the action. I've never seen him have a technical fight in his entire life. He wants to get in there and force a brawl every time out, and Martinez is going to sink or swim in this fight. I'm with you. I think Martinez wins, and I do think he probably finishes Marcelo, but the way Martinez got clipped by Davey Grant, the way he's been hurt in some of his fights, I can't count out the upset with a guy like Rojo.
The only thing that made me a little hesitant on the under, but at plus money I'd probably have to take a shot as well, is that it's the first knockout loss of Rojo's career. And for a guy who's 33 years old, has, over 20 pro fights, the first time fighters get KO'd, sometimes that's the thing that slows that aggressiveness down a little bit. So I don't know. Right now I'm still passed, but I'm very tempted at Jonathan Martinez. But I didn't see the by submission prop up yet, so I don't know the odds. The books I was looking at had Jonathan Martinez inside the distance at plus 250. That might be the bet right there. Rather than laying minus 170, take a little plus 250 that Martinez, if he gets it done before the final bell.
I don't hate that, Matt. I do not hate that at all. That's the most likely outcome, in my opinion, is Jonathan Martinez inside the distance. So we agree early on the first fight of the night. It always feels good to get the party started like that. Let's roll straight on into the second fight of the night. And It's one that is a little sketchy, but I'm excited about, man. We've got Dalcha Lungiambula taking on Marc-Andre Barriault, and I've already got my first action of the week here on this fight, Matt. Dalcha Lungiambula is 11-2. Marc-Andre Barriault 12-4. And this is a clash of styles, really. Dalcha's coming down to 185. We saw him make his debut last time out, but he's getting adjusted even at the ripe old age of, I think, 36 years old. This guy is still undersized at 185. Like, he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage in this spot, but that's because of those long, lanky gorilla arms. I know something about those, but he just does not have the frame. It's a very awkward body type for him. He's going to be tiny in there against Marc-Andre Barriault, but he's just a muscle monster. This guy is thick. He is powerful. He's explosive. He's got blast double legs, heavy ground and pound, and he powers everything. Like, his takedowns, not a lot of technique, mostly muscle. He just wants to overwhelm his opponents with that physicality. Marc-Andre Barriault snapped his skid in his last fight, and he's kind of more of a grinder on the feet. He's got a meat and potatoes striking style. He doesn't do anything flashy or special, but he's a decent wrestler. He's got strong hips and a good takedown defense. He's got a good get-up game, and then he just stays on you. He is another one of these guys that's willing to make a fight boring, willing to push you up against the fence to slow you down, and then just outlasts you. He's got a good, solid gas tank, and Marc-Andre Barriault is one of those guys that if you've seen him fight once, you've seen him fight every time. You know exactly what you are getting from Marc-Andre Barriault. I went ahead and I laid the price on Marc-Andre. He's a guy that I felt like had the ability to improve. He's got room to move up a little bit in the world. Dalcha Lungiambula, I think we've seen the best of him. And when you have a fighter that's changing weight classes, especially dropping a weight class late in their career, it just never ends very well. And the fact of the matter is, Dalcha Lungiambula never really had a great mind for MMA. At the regional scene, he can just run people over, but he has no plan B. Once he doesn't kill them in the first round, he has nothing to go to from there. I don't think he'll be able to get takedowns on Marc-Andre Barriault, which means he's going to have to stand. And I'm having Vietnam flashbacks to Abdul Razak Al Hassan here. But as long as our Marc-Andre Barriault doesn't get knocked out in that first round, I think he just outclasses Dalcha and maybe even finishes him late. So I got minus 145 on Marc-Andre. Matt, how do you feel about this fight?
I'm with you on the side, but I ended up not playing the side, and I played the total here. Over 2.5 rounds, plus 120. I think that's still available right now as the total. I saw it at the few spots that had totals up already. And what did impress me a little bit was that, this guy's fought a tough schedule, champion, Lungiambula, whose nickname is Champion. The fact that his only loss in the UFC was to Ankalaev, who we know is a beast, could be a future champion someday. Went the distance with Marcus Perez, and he has one of those body types because he's so short where you think he's going to be this massive power puncher, but he's not because he doesn't have great technique. He's all just muscles. So at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to be able to hurt power bar in this situation. I don't think he's going to get a lot of takedowns either, but he's shown his toughness. I mean, I think it was midway through round 3 when Ankalaev finally got him, and he was really outgunned in that fight. Barriault's one of those guys. He's just kind of a grinder, and I'm not sure he's going to, go for the knockdown himself. So I will say that I think that, at the end of the day, Lungiambula showed a good enough chin. He's been in there with some big, tough guys, some really elite strikers in MMA. So I think he's going to be able to hang around. And I think Barriault's probably going to win by decision. But again, those props aren't up already, Barriault by decision. So I went ahead and played over 2.5 rounds plus 120.
Okay. All right. That's another bit of a hot take there, Matt. And I don't hate it. We see these sneaky overs in light heavyweight and heavyweight fights where they squeeze over that 1.5 a bit. And the two, realistically, if you're getting over 1.5 more often than not, you're getting over 2.5 because these big boys get tired. They slow down. And Marc-Andre, he's not a guy that likes to rush. He's not a guy that pushes the pace. Like I said, he will grind you against the fence as long as you'll let him, and he has no problem winning a fight that way. So I really don't mind the over 2.5 in this spot whatsoever. I think that's a pretty good look.
All right.
All right. I like that we agree on the side, though. That makes me feel better. All right. So, everybody, at this point, I do want to take just a second to shout out my sponsors, Goat Capital Sports. You can find them at Goat Capital _ over there on Twitter. They do have daily packages and weekly packages where you can get picks on almost every single sport under the sun. These guys are solid. They know what they're doing year over year. And I have a special coupon, a deposit code, if you will. It's just a coupon. It's not a deposit because you don't actually deposit with them. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Right now, they are offering for the next 2 weeks leading up into football season, 20% off to diehard MMA podcast listeners exclusively. If you sign up with Goat Capital Sports, give them the code DIEHARD for 20% off your package with them for the next 2 weeks before football season. Let them know I sent you that way at Goat Capital _ code DieHard for 20% off. All right. Next fight up, we have got my guy, Charles Air Jourdain, taking on Julian Juicy J. Erosa. And what a fight this one is. I mean, I said already that I think this card is going to be violence. This fight is going to be spectacular as long as it lasts. Julian Erosa, 25-10. Charles Jourdain, 11-3. Julian is the definition, Matt, of a glass cannon. This guy is all offense, and he has no durability to back it up whatsoever. He drops his hands. He throws heavies. He wings from the hip. He crashes the pocket. He likes to throw flashy strikes, flying knees, spinning stuff. And honestly, we talk about his striking all the time. This guy has almost as many submission wins as he does knockouts. His BJJ is slick. This guy is nasty on the ground. And he's dangerous everywhere. You're never safe with Julian Erosa. Now, Charles Jourdain, he's kind of the betting darling of the UFC these days. A lot of us are really high on this kid, think he's got a lot of upside, think he's going places. And he's an aggressive striker. He likes to get in people's faces. He's got a heavy kicking attack. And one thing that he does that I like a lot is that he works the body. He is always attacking with rib roasters in the clinch. He likes to jack people's abdominals and midsection up. He has a blitz attack where he comes in heavy with his left hand. And then they call him Air Jourdain because this kid has no problem flying through the air to land a kick or a knee. Once he gets his timing down, he can hit you with that from pretty much anywhere. And he's dangerous late in the fight. The kid's got moxie. You know, in his last fight, he was in a war with Rojo, we talked about earlier on the card. And he went back to his corner, kind of an Adesanya moment where he said, I'm going to be a UFC champion, and didn't take that fight to the judges' scorecards, went out and got a third-round finish instead of just sliding his way to a victory. That's the kind of thing you want to see in a kid like this. You know he's a dog that will fight for your money. And we have a minus 200 price tag on Charles Jourdain. You can get Juicy J, the comeback, plus 160, plus 155, somewhere in that ballpark. And man, Matt, especially after last week, seeing some of the dogs that showed up the way they did, I'm a little bit shell-shocked. I want to pick Charles Air Jourdain here, but I've got a feeling that this might be the apple pie shitter spot of the week where people parlay this kid and expect it to just be free money fading Julian Erosa. And Julian Erosa is a much bigger guy in this spot, 5-inch reach advantage. And unless I'm mistaken, because he's coming in on short notice, they took this fight at a catch weight. So there's going to be a slight advantage for Julian Erosa potentially coming in on short notice, and he's the kind of guy that can finish literally anybody. So I have a hard time laying minus 200 on Charles Jourdain here, even though I think he should be the side. I would prefer violence. Once again, I would prefer looking under or fight doesn't go the distance. What about you?
Biggest play so far for me on this card is this fight. And when I say biggest, only that I bet it twice. It's the only one I haven't bet more. You know, every other play I bet once. I bet this twice already. I bet under 2.5 rounds. I got minus 125 the first time. I had to lay minus 130 the second time on under 2.5 rounds. I'm also going to play Jourdain by KO because I think that's the most probable situation here. At the end of the day, Julian Erosa has been knocked out in 4 of his last 5 losses, and his durability doesn't just seem bad. It seems like if it's windy in the arena, he might go down. So at the end of the day, I think the most likely outcome is that Jourdain ends up knocking him out. But I do think that there's a situation early where before he gets tired, because I think Erosa is going to gas in this fight, taking it on short notice, I actually think he could catch Jourdain in a submission. While Jourdain has been in there with Andre Fili, who's a pretty good scrambler and has some good submissions himself, the rest of the guys that beat him, Desmond Green, volume striker, TJ Laramie, just a little bit too much for him at the time. He hasn't really been in there with great sub guys. And I think that there's a chance early on, because, everyone knows the history of Erosa getting KO'd, that if an over-aggressive Charles Jourdain rushes in, he could get caught in a sub. So I really love the under 2.5, but at the end of the day, once the props come out, I'm also going to play Air Jourdain to win by KO.
I like it, Matt. I couldn't agree with you more on both points, and this is exactly like the first fight of the night for me. I don't want to pick a side. I just want someone to go to sleep. I do think that it's going to be Jourdain doing the finishing. I do think that he's going to take advantage of Julian Erosa's durability problems. But Julian is so offensively gifted that you cannot count him out. Anybody that's saying that Jourdain is a lock this week, it's going to get sweaty. That's all I can say is it's going to get sweaty, and you might have a more tough time cashing that ticket than you would think because of what Erosa is capable of. And especially, like you mentioned, Matt Holt, he's on short notice. He's going to be going for broke. He's going to come out early because he knows he's on a clock. So if he doesn't get that first round finish, I expect him to fold probably in the second. And yeah, I think that under 2.5 really is the sweet spot here for me.
Yeah, me too. And my biggest play so far, I've already bet it twice, and I may bet it again. I really believe we're going to see a finish in this fight. I don't know how, one way or another, Julian Erosa is still standing in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. He's either won already by that point, or he's going to be out on his stretcher.
Yeah.
Man, I got to get 5 dimes. That's all it comes down to. I got to sign up for a damn 5 dimes account because I can never get these totals until later on in the week. And then I'm going to end up laying minus 160 where you got minus 120. Okay. We are moving. Whoa. Oh, that went down the wrong tube. I apologize. We are moving the show right along here. We have got Jack Shore, Tank, taken on Liudvik, Sholinian. And if you don't recognize Liudvik, he was on the most recent season of The Ultimate Fighter, so he's technically making his UFC debut here, taking on the undefeated 14-0, highly touted Jack Shore. And this is an extremely interesting fight for me because of the perception of these two fighters. Jack Shore is one of the biggest favorites on the card at this point, and it's hard to argue with that. The guy trains with Brett Johns, who's a fighter that I'm a huge fan of, even though he left the UFC. I think he kind of headed for greener pastures and a guy that gave some real tough opponents trouble. He pressures relentlessly. This guy is such a good grappler, and he refuses to get off your hips. He rides that body lock. And I was going to say he rides the body lock until you get him off, but it's almost impossible to get him off. He's got great takedown defense. He scrambles well to stay in top dominant positions, and he really just has some high ring IQ. That guy knows exactly what to do inside the cage, doesn't make mistakes or bad choices, and he's got a great gas tank. Liudvik is coming out of Extreme Couture, which is a solid gym. He's tall, he's long, and he tries to walk his opponents down. He just doesn't have much to offer in the striking realm. He's a good, strong, physical grappler, but he's got tall man defense on the feet. If he can't control the grappling, if he can't get you to the mat, he's going to have a hard time because he definitely he leans that head back, and he is right there. That chin is available to be popped if you can reach him. He does have good in and out movements, and if he does get you to the mat, he's very, very strong in top position. He's a big, heavy guy. I want to see them face off, if I'm being completely honest, because Jack Shore is a minus 500 favorite here. You can get Liudvik at plus 360. I fully expect Jack Shore to roll here, Matt. He should be able to control the wrestling. He should be able to control the grappling. But Liudvik is so damn big that if Jack Shore wears out trying to ride this guy like he does most of his opponents, if he gets 1 or 2 takedowns early and doesn't get him out of there with some kind of a submission, and Liudvik is hanging around in the second or the third round, Liudvik is no joke. And if you're going to engage in the grappling with this guy and he lays on top of you, that is a big body that you've got to shift around and move and try to escape from under. I am once again very fearful of parlaying somebody like Jack Shore in this spot, because this could be a spot where just the bigger body matters. You know what I mean, Matt?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I played a half unit on the over 2.5 rounds plus 105. And a lot of times what happens is I think you get a little bit too much bias built into the odds when you have a big favorite. Like the biggest favorite on the card, people also automatically assume there's going to be a finish with that big favorite, and thus there's a little bit more juice to the under. Look, I think at the end of the day here, Sholinian has proved that he doesn't have a lot of finishing ability himself. You know, most of his fights go the distance. 1 knockout, 3 submissions. He comes from a great grappling camp, has a wonderful grappling base. And at the end of the day, this fight is likely to hit the ground. I could see a situation where Jack Shore's wrestling is good enough to get takedowns, but while he's down there, he's not able to really do much with it because Sholinian's grappling is really good. And I think this one could end up being one of the few snoozers on the card. And I took it over 2.5 rounds plus 05.
Okay. That's another spot that, honestly, Matt, I think you're sharp this week. I didn't even take a look at this fight's total yet. So if it's hanging there at 2.5, I'm pretty sure this fight hits the judges' scorecards. Both these guys are such heavy grapplers, heavy wrestlers, good, strong, solid submission defense on both sides, both a little bit lacking in the striking realm. I think even though Shore is the better striker, he's going to have a hard time reaching Liudvik's chin. So, yeah, this one probably just works its way over. I don't mind that over 2.5 whatsoever. That's a nice spot.
Especially if you can sneak plus 05 or even money.
Yeah. If you can get that for even money or plus money, that's a fantastic spot to take a look at. We do have a question in the chat. Colton asking about Bovada and why they won't pay you for the Paul fight. Colton, buddy, you'd have to get a little bit more in depth on that as far as the circumstances, and you might be able to get some customer support online or tweeting Bovada directly, something like that. We'd have to know what the bet was, and maybe there's circumstances. Like I know Bovada, I think they changed Paul wins by decision to Paul wins by unanimous decision at some point throughout the week. So there's a couple, they're offshore. So every once in a while you can get a couple shady little situations going there that unfortunately there's not a lot of things that we can control over. So hopefully they're just taking their good sweet time and they'll be able to end up getting you a payout.
Look, and I don't just say this because I work for an integrity company and promote regulated sports betting, but one of the beautiful advantages about betting with a licensed book in some of these states is if there is an issue, you have a gaming control board to go to locally and say, hey, they didn't pay me. One of the problems sometimes with betting with the offshores is in some of these controversial decisions, you're at their mercy, right? Whether they changed language or changed house rules, and you don't really have a recourse to go to. Offshore
books are definitely always a gamble, but Colton, I mean, if you're saying the bet was the over 1.5, I mean, that's an easy casher. That's an easy casher. They should and more than likely will be paying you. I don't know what the holdup would be. I would just, keep calling them. Keep calling them.
That's it.
All right. Next fight up, we have got a ladies' battle here. Ji-Yoon Kim taking on Molly Meatball McCann. Ji-Yoon Kim is the Fire Fist, and she is 9-3 so far in her professional MMA career. We've got Molly McCann on the flip side of this thing. I don't know what happened here. My notes are backwards. We got Molly, who's 10-4. And this, another one, Matt, this is going to be a fun fight. I mean, both these women come to bang. This is not your average, bottom tier women's MMA fight where it's going to be slow. These two ladies like to throw down. Molly is short and stocky. She's got good, sharp boxing. She's light on her feet. She has good side to side movement. And she knows she's got to get inside. She loves to go to work in that boxing range, and she does her best work when she can physically overpower her opponent. She has decent wrestling, and honestly, her last two fights, a lot of people are down on Molly McCann right now because she fought some women who we didn't have the best opinion of necessarily, but turned out to be sleepers in the division. She's had a really tough go of it recently with her opponents. Ji-Yoon Kim, she's training out of Syndicate MMA, which seems to be all the rage these days. All the up-and-coming names are headed to Syndicate MMA. So I think it's a good move. She's working with Michael Chiesa and Jojo Calderwood, a fighter who I have nothing but love and respect for. Very well-rounded skill set, good training partner to have. Ji-Yoon Kim is tall, she's extremely long for the division, and she's got power. She's got a big right hand. She manages her range with a nice long jab. She's very calculated and measured in there because she knows not to overextend and get caught with people on the inside. She is a bit hittable, though. She's willing to go for one with her opponents because she knows that she has a power advantage over the majority of them. The problem is she's kind of a fish out of water in the grappling, or at least she was the last time we saw her. She gives up trip takedowns. She can get caught off of her back. And really, when you look at her record, she gave up 2 takedowns to Antonina Shevchenko. She's the lesser Shevchenko and not a phenomenal grappler herself. The fact that she was, giving up those kind of spots, it really makes you concerned with what she's able to do on the mat. She's got a full foot reach advantage here, and that's just ridiculous. But 42% takedown defense, Matt. This seems like a buy low spot for Molly McCann. It's a pick'em price tag, -110 on either side of this, and I've got bad flashbacks, Matt. Bad flashbacks, because the last time we had a pick'em price tag, and I bet Molly McCann is a -115 favorite, she closed -180, beat a massive line move, and she got her ass kicked. So this is a spot where, very much like last week, I feel like a lot of people are going to be on Molly McCann this week. That's going to be the consensus agreement that she should win this fight. And then it's going to play out super close. That's just how I feel about how this one is going to go down. Do you have a bet or a good read on this fight?
No, and I actually was leaning the other way. First of all, I was on that last meatball fight with you and was excited about beating the line the way we did, but we're just never in the fight. And I actually like this difficulty of the Kim schedule, the fact that she lost to Alexa Grasso, who's really good. The lesser of the Shevchenkos, but again, okay, she's been in there with some pretty good strikers. Justine Kish by split decision is at least another tall woman who likes to throw down. At the end of the day, the over on this fight is -350, 2.5 over -350. So they're saying it's going to go the distance. And I'm like, okay, if it's going to go the distance, who do I think is going to throw more volume? Fire Fist. Who's actually been a little bit better against strikers lately? Fire Fist. Who's been fighting against and thus preparing for strikers more? Fire Fist. And she's going to be 3.5 inches taller, going to have the height and reach advantage here. I didn't bet it yet, but to be honest, I was leaning Kim. I like Meatball McCann too, but maybe that's the problem sometimes is, you said it yourself with Kevin Lee last week, is when you start to become a fan, and we all are fans, let's face it, we're fans too. We love MMA, but sometimes you want someone to win so bad that it can, you can kind of lose sight of what's going to happen. And at the end of the day, I think Kim's a lot taller, a little bit faster, going to control range. And if this thing's going to be a decision, I think the volume might be there for her. I think McCann might land the 3 biggest shots of the fight, but Kim may land 35 more shots in the fight and squeak out some split decision in what looks like a very, very close fight on paper.
I can totally respect that opinion, absolutely. And the note that I left for myself here, Matt, was If Molly grapples, she wins.
Yes.
I feel like if Molly comes in with the game plan of I'm going to go back to the wrestling and just takes this chick down on repeat, she probably wins this fight running away. The problem is she likes to strike. She
I don't
likes
remember
to
the
box.
last time we saw Molly start using the wrestling really offensively.
It's one of those things that she always has in her back pocket, but we just don't see it enough because she likes to get in there and bang. It's an obvious hole in the game of Yeon Kim, but time and time again, we get on these types of shows and we talk about these fighters and what they could do, and we are not the head coach. We are not in there when they shut the cage. I can't sit in the corner and scream at Molly to go for a takedown. So if they have not decided that takedown is the game plan, we could just be sitting there with a ticket we can light on fire 2 minutes in because Molly decided she wanted to box tonight. So for me, this is a perfect fireball and pass, fireball and popcorn type of situation, Matt. I want nothing to do with this fight from a betting perspective. It should be fun to watch. I kind of hope we see Yeon Kim get the win here. She's someone who I low-key have been a fan of and have been excited for moving forward. But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to get nasty. And if you've got a bet on it, no matter what that bet is, you're probably not going to feel comfortable with it. And then once the scorecards get read, we might be hearing robbery.
No, I'm with you. If I play anything, I think it's going to be Kim just because the fight's so likely to go the distance, and I think she's going to throw more volume.
Okay. And that's a perfectly fair take. I do think of the two, she hits harder, so optically speaking, she might have better damage output for the judges, so may not be a bad look whatsoever there, Matt. I do want to shout out my guy, Rob, for the huge hit on Sabatini. Congratulations, but bro, I was on that fight, and let me tell you, Immers is 90% to win that fight if he just doesn't go to the damn ground and play leg locks with Sabatini. Talk about a mental lapse. That one hurt. All right. This next fight coming up here is the one, this might as well be the main event, Matt. We've got the UFC debut of Paddy Pimblett, and he's taking on my guy, Luigi Vendramini. And I cannot wait for this lightweight fight, Matt. This one is going to be so good. Luigi is 16-3. I'm sorry, Paddy Pimblett is 16-3. Luigi is 9-2. And we've been waiting for a real long time for Paddy to make his UFC debut. He's a guy that they could have gotten probably 2 years ago. He decided to stick it out in the regional scene, get his skills shored up a little bit, beat some people to round out his time. And honestly, he probably made the right choice. If you rush this kid to the UFC, he probably doesn't look very well. And now he's a much more complete package when he makes his UFC debut. This kid stands tall. He likes to stay in your face. He's got a sharp jab, nasty submissions, and he's extremely well-rounded. This kid likes to hunt people's backs. When he gets in there for wrestling, he gets on the body lock, and he's on your back super quick, like ultra fast. This kid immediately transitions, and you cannot have him on your neck. He likes to work that body triangle, and very rarely when he gets on somebody's back do they escape that position. He does have a tendency to go one and done on his striking shots, though, which is not something that I like to see. I think his striking still has a bit of a way to go here, and he's a bit hittable. He doesn't seem to respect his opponents or their power very much. He's kind of Darren Till 2.0. He's this kid that's got a very, very similar brash, outgoing personality that people like to jump on, but he doesn't seem to give anybody their due respect, and it's been him a couple times. He's 2-3 in his last 5. Now, Luigi, my guy, he is 1-2 in his last 3, and he's got a 100% finish rate. This guy is all action all the time. extremely explosive. He blitzes to close in and get the range he wants. He's got hard low kicks that he likes to attack throughout the fight, and he fires heavy power hooks. He's another one of these guys that just swings for the fences. Now, he struggled in his last fight against Faraz with that big reach disadvantage, but you saw him kind of figure it out and get going there in the third. It took him 10 minutes to kind of get around what he was dealing with, and then he had a real solid showing and almost got his opponent out of there in the third round, showing that he's a vicious finisher even late in the fight. Luigi's the kind of guy that you can just never count out, and that's the type of fighter that I love to back. He's an absolute dog, and he's a solid grappler, Matt. That may be his best attribute. We've seen him knock people out. We've seen him hurt people, but he's an incredible grappler, and that's where this fight gets interesting to me because, honestly, if this stays standing, I kind of favor the power of Luigi Vendramini, but he is going to have the same disadvantage of that reach against Paddy Pimblett. The big question is going to be, where are these boys at when it hits the ground? Because we know what Paddy is going to do. Is Luigi defensively sound enough to counter that? And is he going to be at a big enough size disadvantage that it's going to make a difference? Because if he ends up being smothered on bottom, he's going to be in for a long night. And let's be real, the UFC wants Paddy Pimblett to come in, make a splash, be a star. That's the guy in this spot. So there's a short price tag on Paddy Pimblett, minus 140, minus 150-ish right now on the UFC newcomer, and the dog Luigi Vendramini, plus 115, plus 120. A fight that, man, if I'm being honest, I would love to go back to the well with my guy Luigi Vendramini. I would love to see him spoil the debut of Paddy Pimblett and put this kid in a bad spot right out the bat. But realistically, it's a close fight with a lot of questions, and maybe not one that I'm going to end up getting to the window with, Matt. How do you see this one playing out?
I played Luigi already. I only got plus 125. I probably should have waited, knowing that people want to bet Paddy the Baddy, and I already could have got 5 or 10 cents better. I wouldn't be surprised if that's 15 or 20 cents better by actually fight time on Saturday. But I'm already on Luigi here. I like the fact that it's his 4th UFC fight. He's only 25 years old. He trains at a great gym. So I think there's a lot of reasons to think he's going to keep getting better because he's so young and trains with such elite guys over there. So, and at the end of the day, I think he's the better wrestler here. Paddy's obviously the better submission grappler, but I actually think Luigi might be able to get takedowns here. And if he does, he's going to have the better ground and pound. He might actually hurt Paddy in the ground and pound situation. I thought he looked okay against Zayam, especially late. And look, Zayam's 7-1 his last 8. His other loss in the UFC was to Zaleski dos Santos on a flying knee. In between that, he had a pretty good win himself. I mean, let's not forget, he had a first-round knockout himself in between that. But I think he's settled in now. 4th UFC fight, ready to go, only 25, training at a good gym. Paddy making that UFC debut, how many guys have we seen come over with a little bit of hype behind him under the bright lights for the first time and melt? I went ahead and pulled the trigger and put a unit on the Italian Stallion.
I like it, Matt. I really do. Shaping up to be a dog or pass spot, in my opinion, but you got plus 125, and you're not the only one thinking Luigi. That line is coming down a bit, which honestly I'm surprised at. I really thought that the hype coming in for a guy like Paddy was really going to swing it the other direction. Because if you give me Luigi at something like plus 150, I have to bet that. Like, regardless of how I feel, I have to bet that. But with him getting down to plus 110, if he hits even money, like, all of a sudden I'm a lot less interested in that spot. But you make a lot of good points. He's been here. He's established. He knows the level. And something that one of our guys here in the chat was saying, he may well have gotten the wrong side of the judge's decision his last fight out. Leon brought up the point that Luigi should be 1-1-1 in his last 3 because he should have gotten a 10-8 there in that third round and at least gotten out with a draw, which I personally do agree with. So, yeah, maybe the dog shot on Luigi Vendramini is the way to go.
Yeah, I'm on it.
I love it. Short and straight to the point. You are on it. Not a whole lot else to say. Yeah, I'm tempted, Matt. I'm very tempted. I like Luigi Vendramini. He's one of those guys I've got circled, just the way he fights. I love the skill set. He reminds me almost of a Vicente Luque, where it's a little chaotic, it's a little wild. Once he figures it all out, he's going to be on the right path. And maybe he gets there.
And Paddy the Baddy didn't have the toughest, level of competition in Cage Warriors. It's not that Cage Warriors isn't a good organization. They are. They have some decent fighters, but they liked him over there. He was a draw. They handpicked opponents a lot of times that they thought would be favorable to him, and he didn't always look so great against them. I think coming over to, across the pond to the UFC is going to be a challenge for him. And I think his overall game is not ready for UFC yet. Yes, he has an amazing submission game. He's really quick to spring submissions on you if he gets you in those spots. But his striking's really raw still, and I'm just not sure he has the overall game. His wrestling's not that great either for somebody who's really good at submissions.
Yes, that's a valid point. That is a valid point. And I do think the strength and explosiveness of Luigi could cause some problems there, because if Paddy can't, I don't know, jumping backpack him, he might have a problem getting the fight where he wants it to be, and then he's going to have to deal with those hooks.
Yeah.
All right, I like it. Matt, you may be talking me into it. We'll see where the week takes me and where that line goes. I do expect at some point probably some love is going to come in on Paddy, so I'm going to sit and see if it swings back the other direction. Next fight up, everybody. This is a short card, so brace yourselves. We are chugging right along, and there have been a lot of fights canceled, so probably going to be a short episode tonight. But we've got Khalil Rountree taking on Modestas Bukauskas, and Khalil, the warhorse, is a man who made a lot of us feel really dumb in his last fights. 8-5 coming in here against Modestas, who is 11-4. And man, what a mess Khalil's last fight was. He ran into Marcin Prachnio, who somehow found a new chin. I know a lot of people who bet on Khalil Rountree in round one that fight. Everybody's expecting Marcin Prachnio to just fold over with the ridiculous striking of Khalil Rountree. And I went back and I rewatched the fight, Matt. Khalil was extremely competitive in that fight, and he landed some bombs. I think the overall perception of that fight may be a little bit shaded, because Marcin Prachnio is a guy we all know is bottom of the barrel, bottom rung, no chin. Everybody can knock this guy out. And the fact that Khalil lost to him makes everybody talk about how bad that fight was. We all lost money on it, so nobody's happy with it. But if you rewatch it, Khalil actually did some really good things. And he hit Marcin Prachnio with the kitchen sink. And in round two, he was one wobble away from a standing TKO. He hurt Marcin Prachnio badly and couldn't quite follow up on it to get the finish. So I do want to say, after having some time, some distance, some space, we may have been a little too harsh on on Khalil Rountree that night. And I'm certain that Marcin Prachnio and his new doctor got him a solid EPO prescription, and that's the only reason he survived that night. Modestas Bukauskas coming in here, though, really needs a win. This kid's on an 0-2 run. He's got a solid frame for 205. He is big. Modestas is a big 205er. He likes to play on the outside. He circles. He's got a long pawing jab. He's got a quick right cross. And honestly, he's a bit of a counter striker. If I'm being honest, Matt, Modestas reminds me almost of my guy Sam Alvey. He likes to move backwards and try and walk you into a big shot, and he really relies on that takedown defense. He really relies on being pinned up against the cage and that one big shot to close the show. You see it time and time again in his fights. He paid badly for that against a guy like Jim Crute, because he moves backwards and he's got that tall man defense that if you can close that range and blitz on him and crash the pocket, he's hittable. Modestas Bukauskas is extremely hittable, and he's 0-1 on his takedowns in the UFC, I noticed. The way that you beat Khalil Rountree is to break this guy with wrestling. We've seen people have the most success against him by taking him down, roughing him up, making him quit, and really just getting him out of his element. If you're willing to strike with Khalil Rountree, he can hang in that fight. He's got nasty power. He's got good technical Muay Thai. He trains out of Tiger, so he's always going to be improving in that area. This is a fight, Matt, that I'm extremely tempted to go back to the well with Khalil Rountree because nobody is expecting anything of the man in this fight. Modestas Bukauskas is a minus 155 favorite. You can get plus 130, plus 135 on Khalil Rountree. And my only concern is if Modestas is young enough to make those adjustments. You know, my guy Sam Alvey never changes that game plan. But if Modestas has a good head coach and they teach him, hey, you got to start moving forward, then this fight may end up being a mismatch. I'm a little nervous because I think it's a dog or pass spot, and because I think Modestas Bukauskas has all the tools. If he can just wrangle them all together, he could be legit at 205. But if he comes out and he moves backwards again, if you move back on Khalil Rountree, he's going to chew your legs and your body up. That old school Muay Thai is going to just mash the legs and the body of a guy like Modestas Bukauskas, who only leans his head back out of range. And Khalil Rountree has an explosive left hand, Matt. Go back and rewatch the Marcin Prachnio fight. If you guys haven't seen the Marcin Prachnio fight since the day we lost money, go back and watch it again. And you'll see Khalil land that left hand 8 times, 9 times. I'm floored that Marcin survived that fight. Absolutely floored. I think Khalil has a chance to close the distance and put hands on Modestas in this spot. Once again, very sketchy, very low level. Don't know if I'm going to actually bet this one, but it feels like another dog or pass for me, Matt. Talk to me on this one.
Yeah, look, it's 100% dog or pass for me as well, but so far it's been a pass because I just don't love Khalil Rountree, and sometimes I wonder if he loves MMA and he really wants to do this. But on paper, without knowing, because I don't know what's inside his head, what's inside his heart, how much he really wants to do this, how long he wants to do this. But he's only lost, other than the Prachnio fight, he's only lost to really, either ranked or right there ranked guys, Johnny Walker, Tyson Pedro, Andrew Sanchez. We're talking about a guy who knocked out Paul Craig. Paul Craig suddenly hot again. He's kind of on again, off again, depending whether he's getting those amazing subs or getting knocked out. But Rountree knocked him out. When Gokhan Saki came over with all that hype, people forget Khalil Rountree was like a plus 300 or something against Gokhan Saki, knocked him out. The Anders win is a good win, again, against another fringe top 15 guy, but his volume sometimes isn't there. Bukauskas is going to come in off that jab. He's going to throw a lot of volume. I want to take Khalil, but I definitely don't want to lay it here.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in the over a little bit at 1.5 because Khalil to me is one of those guys that just doesn't always come out on fire. And a lot of his knockouts, like Saki, was Saki engaging him. If you don't engage him heavily, then a lot of times you could end up in one of those slow moving around, one heavy leg kick, kind of move back around, striking dances. I could see this one making it a 1.5. I was looking at that. Right now, it feels like it should be Khalil Rountree, yet no one's betting him. And I'm like, So I don't know. It's probably dog or pass. Maybe a play on the over 1.5 because I don't know that Rountree's always aggressive. He just doesn't seem to have that killer instinct. Amazing kicks, amazing power. Doesn't always seem to be a killer in there. Maybe the over 1.5 rounds.
He is a bit of a gamer. He does like to get in there and almost spar. It's almost like he's in a sparring match every time he's in the cage. So I can absolutely see that. And the over 1.5, very affordable. Getting minus 115 or so on the over 1.5. This doesn't seem like a bad spot for that because, we've seen, what Modestas was able to do in his knockout win in the UFC was when his opponent came in and went for a takedown. He got him with the Travis Brown side elbows up against the cage. Khalil's not going for a takedown. Modestas has shot for, I think, what was the stat I gave? He's 0 for 1 on takedowns in 3 UFC fights. He doesn't shoot for takedowns. This guy wants to play the outside. They could absolutely trade leg kicks for 7.5 minutes and cash that over 1.5. Totals may be the way to go on this entire card, if we're being honest.
Agreed. I really think it could be.
What I
don't want to do is bet on Khalil Rountree and then watch him throw like 31 total strikes the entire fight in a fight where he's never hurt, but he gets out, the volumes like 91 strikes thrown for Bukauskas and 30 thrown for Rountree. And he lands one that hurts Bukauskas, but he doesn't follow up, and we lose a split decision. And I'm like, why did I bet Khalil Rountree again?
There's always that guy, right? That was me last week with my guy Sam. That I was just sitting there like, why did I do this to myself? I got to get better, Matt, at avoiding those spots where the fighter has shown you who they are. Like, don't expect a change, don't expect an improvement, don't expect them to step on the gas because it's a must-win situation. Just pass. If they show up and they do something differently, then you can look at betting them after that point. But before they actually show you they're capable of it, just don't put your money on it.
That's right. You don't have to bet every fight.
That's our biggest advantage, is that we do not have to bet every fight. Usually end up doing it anyway, but we don't have to. All right, everybody. We got 3 fights left to talk about. Next one coming up here is, this one's going to hurt my heart. Speaking of guys that I like and I just keep betting and never learn my lesson, the great white Alex Morono taking on David Zawada. We've got a welterweight tilt here. David Zawada 17-6, Alex Morono 19-7. My guy Morono coming off of that big career-defining knockout win over Donald Cerrone. He seems to be on the legends path right now for his career. Fought Anthony Pettis right before he left the organization, now fighting Donald Cerrone. He's got to get back to guys that are potential, contenders, fighters the UFC has some interest in. Alex Morono seems to have replaced Donald Cerrone as that gatekeeper role now. He's the new 2.0. Trains out of Fortis MMA. And he's extremely well-rounded. I like Alex Morono. This guy's a BJJ black belt, but he never uses it. We were just talking about that. I can't trust Alex Morono to do any of the things that he could do to win a fight. He forces a brawl every single time he gets in there. He wants to land big bombs. He wants to go to war. He wants to strike. He wants to knock people out. And if he would just friggin' wrestle, he would have so much more success in the UFC, but he never, ever does that. Now, sorry, go ahead, Matt. You were going to say something?
No, I was just, this one, I'll tell you, it feels like anytime you have a win like he did over a guy like Cowboy Cerrone, then there's an inflation to your odds in your next fight. And I think that's what we're seeing here. To me, this fight feels like a pick'em. Zawada's the bigger puncher. Zawada's actually the crisper striker. And the fact that Zawada's record isn't so good in the UFC, it's against some top guys. Jingliang Li, Danny Roberts, who could fight, a really close fight with Amiv. He beat Nurmagomedov, who rebounded his next fight and beat Jaron Gooded, so that win is aged well. This fight to me feels like a pickup. But you're telling me one guy I get plus 160. Okay, I'll take it.
That's exactly what I did, Matt.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad to hear we line up on the dog hunting this week because I got plus 155 in my pocket on David Zawada. Not only is he the more crisp striker, like you mentioned, not only, in my opinion, does he have the more explosive offensive grappling, but he's the bigger man. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here in this spot. Alex Morono is not big at this weight class. David Zawada is far more suited to this weight class. He trains out of American Top Team, which really is doing some amazing things right now. A lot of American Top Team fighters are looking extremely solid. He's strong in the clinch, and that's going to be a problem for the smaller Alex Morono. This guy knows how to use his underhooks, fires off big clinch knees, and he's got a great get-up game. So even if Alex does end up using that grappling, which I never expect him to, he's not going to be able to hold this guy down. David Zawada will be able to get back up to the feet. And he's just extremely aggressive, Matt, when he isn't worried about the takedown. You rattled off his last couple of opponents. And I kind of want to spotlight that a little bit more for the chat here. So give me just 1 second to pull David Zawada's record up here because he fought Ramazan Ameev, who he lost via split decision to, by the way. He fought Abubakar Nurmagomedov, who, like you mentioned, he submitted. Jingliang Li, who he went to war with, dropped him in the first round, nearly got the finish, and then gassed out late. And he got hit right in the liver. He got one of those collapsing liver shots where you just can't do anything.
Reaction.
I don't know if what was that?
One of those delayed reaction shots where it hit him, and then suddenly a second later, you're, oh my God, you can't move. Yeah.
Exactly. Lee threw a spinning heel kick. And let me tell you guys, if you haven't trained any striking in your life, if you haven't done any Muay Thai, and you've never been hit in the liver, let me tell you, it's awful. You're completely paralyzed. Your body, it's not the type of thing that you can tough your way through. Your body literally shuts down, and that's what happened to our guy, David Zawada, is Jingliang Li hit him with the perfect kick in the perfect spot, and he just fell over in a very competitive fight. So he's fought the more, in my opinion, the higher level of competition because these guys are much better than the current form Donald Cerrone and the current form Anthony Pettis. He's fought the higher level of competition. He's fought very competitively with them. 2 of his 3 losses are by split decision that he arguably could have won. And then the Jingliang Li fight is another one that probably was going to be very close on the judges' scorecards that he probably was winning if not for that shut-off liver kick in the third. He's my favorite dog on the card. I love David Zawada here. It hurts me to go against Alex Morono because I have kind of championed this guy throughout his run here in the UFC. I got to go David Zawada, and I like him, and I got him at plus 155. And I think, Matt, we have let the dogs out here. This line is crashing, so if you want to get in on David, you better get in soon. He's plus 140 already. I see him down to plus 130 in certain spots. He's just going to keep going down until this is a pick 'em. So if you want that dog money, get in there now.
And one of the things we talked about earlier, Syndicate MMA and how hot they are, all the Factory X guys that are on this card. One of the, for as many times as we could say, hey, a gym's hot, so I give a little more value to a fighter because their gym's really on fire. They're doing something right now that works. I don't like what's happening at Fortis right now. I don't love what's happening over there. I haven't loved what's been happening at Fortis like the last 18 months to 2 years. So those guys, the striking at Fortis, for whatever reason, seems to have gone backwards quite a bit. But for whatever reason, they all want to brawl. And even just another reason for me why I'm down on Morono and higher on Zawada here. And I think if he would have won one of those 2 fights, either Ameev or Roberts, both the split decision losses, this fight would be a pick-em.
I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And I couldn't agree more on the on your comments there regarding Fortis MMA as well. I don't know that they are doing the best with what they have available. They have a very young crop of fighters, very talented, potential high-ceiling fighters, and they just don't seem to be taking over the way we expected them to. A lot of us thought Fortis MMA was going to be the next big thing, and they've kind of been middle of the road so far. So, yeah. I think this is a great spot. I think that's maybe my favorite spot on the entire card. But this line absolutely should not be this wide. David Zawada is my guy. Let's go get it.
Let's go.
I'm pumped. All right, that's a good one.
I like it when you're pumped.
Well, Matt, I'm shook a little bit. I'm coming off of a bad run. It's like 3 bad events in a row, and then last week I did so well in PFL. It kind of reinforced the fact that I'm like, okay, I'm not a complete idiot. I do know what I'm talking about. I can win sports bets. And then UFC Vegas 35 just came in and absolutely crushed my soul. So having you on the show today and not being head-to-head on every single pick, not having hot takes that are different from your hot takes, like it feels good to have a little positive reinforcement at the moment.
There you go. You might not like my take on the next one.
Oh, boy. The next one is going to be one that a lot of people have a lot of things to say about. What a fight. Co-main event, Tom Aspinall taking on Sergey Spivak. We've got Spivak coming in here on short notice, filling in. Tom Aspinall lost his opponent here. And what a fight. I mean, maybe the 2 biggest heavyweight stars outside of my guy, Chris Daukaus, like these are the future of the division. and they're getting pitted against each other a little closer than most of us fans and maybe even the UFC would have liked. But because of the circumstances, here we are. Good, solid fight. Tom Aspinall is 10-2. Sergey Spivak is 13-2. Tom has sharp, fast hands. This guy is incredibly athletic. He's a good, solid striker. We saw him get that step up against Andrei Arlovski. Good, solid competition. Was able to pull out a win there. Very impressive work. And he's a BJJ black belt. That's something that we can never forget. He doesn't show it often, but it's there in his back pocket if he ever needs it. He's going to have a 2-inch height advantage, but Sergey Spivak is another one of these freaks. They've got the same reach. They're going to have the same reach, even though Sergey Spivak is the smaller guy. And Sergey, I think, is thicker. I think that's something we need to be prepared for, is they call this guy the polar bear for a reason. He's 13-2, so he's got a slight edge in the experience side of things, and he just mauls people, Matt. His boxing is ever improving. He's got decent hands, not a lot of power, but he likes to grapple. He likes to set up those takedowns with the hands. He likes to set up those takedowns with the punches, and then once he gets in on you, you're not going anywhere. You don't get up from under Sergey Spivak. He will ride out top position on you, got good ground and pound, and he's got good opportunistic submissions looking for the finish, and he is not above laying on you for 15 minutes. He will absolutely grind out a win if he has to. This line is something. Tom Aspinall opens up a -165 favorite. He's already been bet up to -175. And all I'm seeing online is Tom Aspinall by KO. Everybody is looking for this guy.
It's Aspinall -280, right? Not one.
Oh, I need to refresh my page. I apologize. I was looking at the old Sergey Pavlovich line.
Yeah.
You're right. He is -280, and honestly, Matt, I'm already seeing him pop up to -300. Thank you for correcting me on that. And I think I'm going to like what you have to say, Matt, because I think this is a dog or pass spot. We haven't seen Tom Aspinall outside of round 1. We haven't seen this man go deep into a fight. Yeah, he got one over Andrei Arlovski outside of the first round, but Andrei's a bit worn at this stage. Andrei likes to keep a nice, slow, measured pace, and if he can't do that, he ends up on the wrong side of things. I think there's a very clear advantage in the striking for Tom Aspinall, but we have seen Sergey Spivak have very, very high defensive IQ, close the distance, get the body lock, get the takedown, and then just maul people on the floor. And I honestly don't see why he can't do that here against Tom Aspinall. Are we on the same side again, Matt, or do you have a hot take?
Yeah, we are. I mean, I know everyone loves Tom Aspinall, so I immediately thought, well, everyone's not going to want to go against Aspinall or Aspinall by KO. But I thought for sure, and maybe I could be way off, that when they switched opponents, that the odds were going to be relatively the same in that -160 range. I couldn't believe when it came back open -300. I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. Because what do you need in a big underdog? You need a path to victory. Well, in this case, the polar bear, like you said, could just lay on him for 5 minutes. If it goes to the ground, I think he's the better grappler. With heavyweights, ground and pound could easily be a KO. Look, there's so much unknown about Tom Aspinall, and I think that submission over Andrei Arlovski and people saying he's working on his grappling too much, he better be careful using it in this fight because he doesn't want to grapple with Sergey Pavlovich here. The polar bear is the better, Sergey Spivak, is the better grappler here in this fight. I think there's a lot of paths to victory. Look, I like Tom Aspinall as much as everybody else. Boy, those hands are fast. He's the British guy, has the cool accent. He comes out there and he chops people down. Yeesh. He didn't come in with that much hype. This wasn't a guy who came in and was supposed to be doing what he's doing. He's not the greatest athlete in the world. At the end of the day, I think there's a ton of value. Win or lose, the polar bear at around +220 is way too much value in this fight, and there's a lot of different ways he can win it. Knockout, ground and pound knockout, submission, lay and pray for 15 minutes. Aspinall, to me, is the one who has one path to victory. stand on his feet and knock Sergey Spivak out. And when you look at Spivak, look, he's been in there with some tough dudes already. Marcin Tybura is having a career renaissance. That is a tough guy that he fought. He's won 3 straight fights. He submitted Tai Tuivasa, and you're like, oh, Tai Tuivasa has no ground game. But Tai Tuivasa is one of those guys like Mark Hunt, who's hard to get to the ground because they're base. They're so low and sturdy. They're hard to take down, period. And the Polar Bear submitted him. I think this fight's a heck of a lot closer than the odds suggest, and for that reason, I had to take the Polar Bear.
I'm right there with you, Matt. I completely agree. I haven't bet it yet because honestly, I expect money to just keep on flowing in on Tom Aspinall. But I think this is absolutely a spot where we're getting a nice price on a dog with a very clear path to victory. Now, maybe I'm wrong because it looks like Sergey Spivak actually opened up at plus 310 and now he's down to plus 225. But I do see that the betting line is coming back Tom Aspinall's way. It seems like money is coming in on Tom. So kind of difficult to read the market move on this one. I'm not sure if I should be waiting or if I should be pulling the trigger at this point, but I feel like this fight is going to go a little deeper, and we're going to see what Tom Aspinall is made of after the first round against an opponent who's in his prime, against an opponent who can fire back, an opponent with a good gas tank, and not someone who's just going to curl up and go away the way that Andrei Arlovsky did. The other way that you could look at this one is definitely going to be from a totals perspective, like we kind of talked about. We've got your classic heavyweight over 1.5 here, Matt. We got that line set at plus 105. Under 1.5 is minus 135. The public perception is Tom Aspinall, round 1, knockout. And sure, maybe he does it again. Maybe he does. But if you think there's any chance that Sergey Spivak is live in this fight, even if you don't want to take Spivak on the money line, even if you don't want to take Spivak to make it to a decision, 1.5. He's just got to get out of the first round. If he can force a couple of grappling situations, get a takedown once, and this fight squeezes over that 7.5-minute mark, you cash your ticket.
And he's not helpless on his feet. It's not like he has to get this thing to the ground immediately or he's going to get knocked out. He's more than competent and capable on his feet. And if gosh forbid, for Aspinall, if Polar Bear ends up on top, he won't get up the rest of the round. And let's just say that he gets one takedown in the first. Having a guy that big on top of you for 2.5, 3 minutes, pounding down, you trying to fight off, it's so exhausting for these guys. It could literally change the complexion of the fight the rest of the way. Even if he doesn't land anything big on top, just the exhaustion from guys that big trying to fight a guy off.
Absolutely. And you know what we saw in his fight against Carlos Boy, Philippe. He's the guy that we really saw an uptick in the striking of the Polar Bear. His boxing in that fight was impressive. His defensive IQ in that fight was impressive. Like you mentioned, he is not a fish out of water on the feet. He will absolutely be able to stay in that fight if he needs to set up the takedown and then get it to the ground. So I'm with you. I think he's a very live dog in this spot.
Me too.
Be careful, parlay peeps. If you're out there looking at this card, looking to parlay them up, I lost a couple units myself on one of those last week. So just be forewarned that all of these underdogs this week are extremely dangerous. And Matt, I'm doing a little bit of on-the-job hunting. And Sergey Spivak looks like he was in camp with somebody else already. So I know this is a short notice fight acceptance for him, but he looks like he's getting some serious work in. And I'm trying to pick out some of the names here, but I'm having a hard time. For a second there, I thought I saw my guy Volkov, but it's not him. So I was about to get real excited that Sergey had gone to train with Volkov. But I don't think this is your average short notice replacement. I'll bet you this was a looking for the fight, staying in shape, staying hungry type of situation. I don't have any information to base that off of. I just suspect that that's probably what's going on here.
He'd be a good training partner for Volkov right now, who's getting ready for Marcin Tybura, who, by the way, the Polar Bear fought Tybura, and like Tybura, likes to grapple a bit at heavyweight.
I need to put a call in, Matt. I'll be the go-between guy. I'll be the idea guy for these training partners, and just give me 5%.
There you go.
All right, everybody. It was a fun card, but like I said, a little bit short because we lost a couple fights tonight. So we are already on to the main event. We're going to take a real quick break to hear a word from our awesome epic sponsors, and then we will go ahead and fire off in this main card breakdown. All right, everybody, make sure you check out Manscaped and use that Pub Sports Radio code over there. Of course, smash this like button for me. Let the world and the internet algorithm know that you like the Die Hard MMA podcast, and subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio for the best sports betting content for free on the net today. Let's talk about our main event for UFC Vegas 36. We have got Darren Till taking on Derek Brunson. And what a fight for the main event. We have got hot takes being fired off on this thing left and right already, Matt. Oh boy, so Darren Till, let's just get the line out of the way. He's a minus 185 favorite. You can get Derek Brunson at plus 150. Brunson is 22-7. Till is 18-3. Derek Brunson is a little bit older. He's making a late career resurgence, having some serious success out there, and he's much, much more measured than he used to be. The big thing with Derek Brunson was he would run straight in to bombs, and that's all this guy did, is he would just try to explode on people, use that athleticism, that speed, that power, and then put people down. And he paid for it. He got a little over-aggressive against the top end of the division. But since he's taken that little notch down, since he's leveled up that brain, that fight IQ just a bit, started using his powerful wrestling, he's been on a monster tear. He's still incredibly explosive. He's got good, strong wrestling. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage in this particular spot. And a lot of people are counting him out again. He's been the underdog in, I think, 4 consecutive fights, and he's on a 4-fight win streak. So this man has been counted out and just come in and cash time and time and time again. Now, Darren Till, 1-3 in his last 4. This man is another Sam Alvey-esque fighter where he's extremely low volume, extremely reliant on that finish. He fires a lot of feints, which is something that other people we might compare him to are missing. You never quite know where that shot is going to come from. He keeps his hands low, keeps you on the defense. And this is maybe a step down in competition for Darren Till, which is kind of surprising to say when you think about the people that Derek Brunson has actually fought against. But Darren Till has been fighting some of the best fighters in the division. He fought Robert Whittaker, who it looks like once again is in championship form recently. He fought Kelvin Gastelum, who even though he's been on a bit of a skid and has kind of a hard time getting over the hump, is a fringe contender, is maybe the biggest gatekeeper in the division. And then he fought champion Tyron Woodley and Jorge Masvidal. So he's fought a strong, strong resume of contenders recently, but I can poke a few holes in it, Matt. I can poke a few holes in it. He got outclassed by Robert Whittaker. He won a split decision over Kelvin Gastelum, which was very unimpressive in my opinion. Kelvin Gastelum came in with a grappling heavy game plan, pinned him up against the fence, kind of tried to look to bully him and grind the clock off. And he actually got outlanded in that fight. Darren Till landed 36 significant strikes. Kelvin Gastelum landed 40 significant strikes in that fight. So the split very easily could have gone the other direction. He got absolutely murked by Masvidal before he finally made the move up to 185. And he got rocked and choked out by Tyron Woodley, a guy who was not known for his aggression these days. And if you want to go back even one further, Matt, I think Wonderboy beat him. That was another fight that I feel the judges got absolutely wrong. I am not a believer in Darren Till. I never have been. I think he's been overrated since the day he stepped his foot inside the octagon. And I think he's going to win on Saturday. It pains me to say that, Matt. I can't wrap my brain around this spot right now because, first off, I don't think there's value on minus 185. Let me just say that. I think the line is too wide. If you're looking for value, Derek Brunson absolutely is the side. But the thing that we have to remember here is that Till has an 85% takedown defense. He is a big boy. I have no idea how he made 170 in the first place. But now that he's up at 185, this dude is strong. And he's got exactly the kind of style that's going to cause Derek Brunson problems. Brunson is going to try to strike with this man. He still has those durability questions. We've seen him hurt. We've seen him hurt badly in his last couple fights. Almost got flatlined by Big Mouth. Almost got... Yeah, Holland almost put him out, and he barely survived with the wrestling. We know how legendarily bad Holland's grappling was. If not for that bad grappling, Derek Brunson's win streak is at an end already. Till's not going to have that problem. When Brunson tries to get in on those hips and grapple, he's not going anywhere. And it's just going to take one clean shot. Matt, as much as I hate to say it, Matt, I think that Darren Till is going to win this fight by knockout.
I'm having a hard time with this fight. And the problem for me with the knockout, and I've looked at the total a bunch of times. I haven't played anything on the main event yet. And the problem here is if you take out the Cowboy Cerrone fight, who's been knocked out, 9 times now, then Darren Till doesn't have a win by knockout since 2015. I mean, everyone talks about his power and all these knockouts he gets early in his career. He literally doesn't have a KO win since 2015 over Wendell de Oliveira Marquis in his UFC debut. That's how far back you have to go to find a KO win for Darren Till in the UFC against someone not named Cowboy Cerrone. So what I'm wondering is if the fight stays close and Derek Brunson continues to try to get takedowns, and he'll have Till pinned up against the fence. And when Till fends off those takedowns, is he really going to go for big strikes? Because history tells us he doesn't really knock dudes out. I kind of thought the over at plus 130, over 4.5 rounds, might have some value. I saw over 3.5 rounds, minus 145. That tempted me. At the end of the day, I'm not on anything yet. I also agree that Darren Till is a really bad matchup for Derek Brunson because Till is really good at stuffing takedowns. And on the feet, well, he's not going to land the heavier shots. He's going to land more shots. And he's going to land better kicks, especially legs and body kicks. You know, Derek Brunson does have a nice high kick, but I think leg and body kicks is really going to go to Till. I don't know. I can't figure this one out. I don't want to bet Darren Till, but at the end of the day, there's no way I'm betting Derek Brunson, but I'm looking at the total because the guy doesn't have a knockout win in 6 years against anyone not named Cowboy.
Yeah. And if you think about
that Casey over 3.5 minus 112, that's a bet I would make right now if I could also get that number.
That's not a bad spot. And that's the thing I was going to kind of shift into talking about next is the total. Obviously, a lot of people are expecting this thing to go by knockout, even though we've discussed how that's maybe not the way Darren Till actually fights. I just feel like it's less Darren Till's knockout prowess, and it's more the durability concerns of Derek Brunson. That's my big thing. I am a Till hater, and you all can quote me on that. Like, I do not like Darren Till. I am not sold on Darren Till. I'm not going to tell you that this guy's a great striker. I'm not going to tell you that this guy's got massive, ungodly power, even though that's what a lot of other people try to sell you on. No, he's not. He's overrated. And I think I want to watch him actually get the Izzy fight, Matt. I really want to see Israel Adesanya fight Darren Till because it will be a one-sided ass beating, and Izzy will play in that fight. It'll be fun to watch the guy just get absolutely clobbered by one of my favorite fighters. But in this spot, Brunson is so chinny, and he's shown that to us. He has to have the grappling. He has to have the takedown advantage to survive. And when he has that spot where he gets clipped with a bad shot and he tries to get in on the hips of Darren Till, and Darren doesn't budge, that's just when I think it's going to go down. And unfortunately, in a 5-round main event fight, you've got a guy that has a very slow pace and wants to wait for the perfect shot. Now he's got 2 extra rounds to do that. We're not talking about a 15-minute fight where he's going to have to hurry up and it might get to judges scorecards by accident. Like, this is a 25-minute fight. Brunson's going to have to wrestle for 25 minutes, and I just don't think he can. I also think Till's got a brick enough head that Derek Brunson probably isn't knocking him out. I know Masvidal got it done, but that was also a weight-cutting Darren Till that didn't belong at 170 anymore. I think that played a big factor in it. So, yeah, man, I don't know what to do with this main event. I'm probably not even going to bet it because I don't want to lay minus 185 on Darren Till. Maybe I take a taste of Darren Till by knockout at some point. I don't want to play the over 3.5 because as much as I think it's got every reason to hit, there's every much of a reason that Brunson slips on a banana peel in round 2 and gets clipped. I'm not confident in anything, Matt, on this main event. Not a single thing.
Yeah, me neither. I just can't get over the fact that of the perception of Till's power and knockout rate compared to the reality of it, and that lately as the competition level's gone up, he's not knocking anybody out. And I'm with you. I don't think he's getting knocked out. So that really leans me toward the over here, especially at the plus price at 4.5 and then maybe the slight juice at 3.5. And that may be all I do. And maybe I regret it when Derek Brunson, to your point, slips on a banana peel in round 3 and just puts himself to sleep. Because he almost did against Holland. Literally, while he was falling down, being knocked out, he wrapped his arms out and happened to get Holland, and it saved him a knockout.
Kevin looked like he was going for a work comp claim the way he was slipping and falling in the octagon, man. Threw his arms up, and if he had any balance whatsoever in that spot, he clips one more shot and closes the show. So, yeah, man, I don't know. My guy Nigel Lee swooping in here. The under 4.5 is the play, and that I've said I like violence this card. That may just be the way to go. Because if Brunson wins this thing, I mean, you would think it would be using that wrestling. You would think it would be him grinding away a win, but I don't think he can. So maybe he has to go for the knockout. Maybe the violence in the main event is just the way to go.
I mean, he does have a big left hand. Let's not take that away from Derek Brunson. He does have a big left hand. I just don't think he lands it here.
He is a natural 185er as well. He's a big boy. This is an explosive fighter who has knocked plenty of people out at this weight class. So I don't want to discount the fact that he's capable of finishing either. You're absolutely right.
But his striking output is so little that literally when it's on its feet, I think the volume will be 2 or 3 to 1 for Till. And I think the volume landed will really be 3 to 1 for Till.
If Till out-volumes somebody, Matt.
I know, but Brunson, the style, I just feel like, I know it's bad. It's bad. Tough one. Tough main event.
I can't comprehend Till outlanding somebody. He's so bad. All right. That was a fun show, Matt. Thank you very much for joining me to break down this little card. It's been way too long. I'm happy we got you back on the podcast. Remind the people what you do, where they can find you, and if you've got anything you want to plug or shout out, you have at it, man. Now's your time.
Yeah, appreciate it, Clint. We run U.S. Integrity. We work with all the licensed operators and most of the leagues in the country, just making sure everything's on the up and up. And, thanks for letting me on. MMA is one of the few sports that I'm still allowed to bet because I have to be the integrity guy. So I'm a huge fan, a lot of fun. Really enjoy it. Thanks, Clint.
Always a pleasure having you, Matt. Love hanging out and talking fights. Absolutely. Make sure you give Matt a follow, everybody. He's got some good stuff. He's doing great work. And the integrity thing is huge for our, sports betting. All of us that like to do it. It's a massive piece of the puzzle for us. So thank you very much for joining me. We hit about 250 live viewers this evening. I think we got some dogs barking this card. It's going to be a fun one. Tread lightly because like last week, I think we're going to see a lot of banana peels. We're going to see a lot of upsets. We're going to see a lot of crazy stuff go down on Saturday. Good luck. And if you're betting Contender Series on Tuesday, good luck on that too. If I find anything, I will tweet it. Give me a follow at Die Hard MMA Pod. And hey, just have a wonderful week. We'll catch you guys next time.